Attention Talking Simpsons listeners, we have a special mini-series just for you.
We're going through the entire first season of King of the Hill, and you can only hear it if you're a $5 and up patron at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
We're giving the Talking Simpsons treatment to all 13 episodes of King of the Hill's first season, and if you want a free sample, you'll find the first episode available for free in the Talking Simpsons feed. Patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. It's the only place you'll find the first season of Talk King of the Hill.
Made you go click, 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 click. It's real easy, man.
Cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello everybody and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we operate our own gelding gin. I'm your host, mummified Bogman Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Henry Gilbert, and I'm a big fan of Urethra Franklin.
Who isn't? And who do we have on the line?
This is Thad Komorowski, and man, that coffee really works.
It does.
Oh,
and today's episode is the Ren and Stimpy Show episode, Hermit Ren.
I know all about your plot.
Yes, we are back to Ren and Stimpy, and that was the great Billy West's Ren, by the way. And in case you're wondering, why are you guys repeating a cartoon so early in the run of What a Cartoon? And I say, you've got some attitude, mister. But secondly, I will say, we did a Ren and Stimpy episode with Thad a little over a year ago, and then basically 3 days after the Patreon episode posted, John Cristofalusi was Me Too'd.
Yes.
There's a really great expose about what he did to children. It's called Drawing the Line. So even before the episode posted, and even before the expose came out, I wanted to do a Games era animation episode of Ren and Stimpy because I love the Games era. I think they made some great cartoons, and I think Thad's book, Sick Little Monkeys, really shattered the narrative that John Kay created for himself. That
worked very hard to create for himself.
That he was the mastermind, that everyone else was talentless hacks. The show was stolen from him. Thad's book really lays out what exactly happened, why John Kay was a terrible boss and a terrible person on top of that. And I think, Thad, you did an amazing job of letting people know, not all the Games cartoons are great. Not all the John Kay cartoons are great, but there are still some really, really great pieces of animation. I think Hermit Ren is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Hermit Ren by the late Chris Reccardi. Yeah,
yes.
Unfortunately, late Chris Reccardi. Yeah, very tragic. Died of a heart attack last month. Yeah, this is his baby. So this was production season 3. It started off the broadcast season 4, because as with John Kay, Ren and Stimpy was always late, no matter who was in charge of it. But I think Nickelodeon didn't mind it being so late with Games because they weren't held hostage with this stuff being late. That's the difference. I know the narrative John tried to push was, well, they're later than we ever were. Well, you've got less people working on them now instead of a whole studio, held up by one office trying to get these cartoons out. But Hermit Ren. Boarded by Chris Reccardi and gangbanged writing by Bob Camp, Jim Gomez, Bill Ray, and Chris Reccardi.
Yeah, the Games era was one as a kid I looked down upon because I was fully indoctrinated into the John Kay way of thinking, because he very smartly or connivingly used PR to control the message. He, as far as I knew, is the great genius was taken off of these. I like these less. Or even if it was a Games one I watched, I thought, I bet this would be 10 times better if John Kay was making it. And now as an adult with hindsight, and even more so knowing what John Kay's work was like, thanks to Thad's book, it really has changed my view on the Games animation era of it. And I fully embrace great episodes like this one. I will say that these are so gross. And
it's true.
I am the weaker stomached of the two hosts here. And so there's a reason why as a kid I'd watch a new Ren and Stimpy if it was advertised as a new Ren and Stimpy. But unlike most cartoons in 1994, if they were rerun, I was like, is there something else on Cartoon Network? Because I remember this is a very disgusting episode.
I was aware there was a change in the show. John Kay's name was not there anymore. Ren's voice was different, but I wasn't really sure about what happened until I got the internet. And by that point, Ren and Stimpy had been canceled. And I knew there was a change, but I still like the show, and I was still really obsessed with the show. And actually, a friend of the show within the past month, Chris Kohler, he gave me a few back issues of the short-lived magazine Wild Cartoon Kingdom. And that was basically the platform through which John Kricfalusi spread misinformation. There is an entire feature about the quote-unquote death of Ren and Stimpy called Sell Out, Celout, that he ghost wrote.
Wow.
And it is all about, it's all about the entire narrative he created. As I said before, like the show was stolen from him, given to his hack underlings, and they were going to ruin it. And now that I look back upon it, I was reading that magazine when it was new. I never saw that issue, which is why I didn't know about the Ren and Stimpy stuff. But that magazine was just a platform for John K. Like, so there were so many features that were like, here are some ideas that John K. has for feature-length cartoons, and here are some ideas that John K. has for shorts. Will he ever get to make them? Oh boy, what about Hee-Hog? I can't wait for them to make Hee-Hog. I'll tell you, they made a Hee-Hog pilot, and it's garbage.
It's horrifying. And the more
Yeah.
you know about John K.'s personal shit, it's all the more disgusting.
Yeah, that was something Joe Arancia, who was an artist on the pilot, and I think he did a little work with John, had told me. It's like, he told me about that period where it's like, okay, all you're doing is writing these fucking magazine articles and hating on your ex-coworkers. Can we actually do something?
Yeah.
He was, what doesn't get said enough is that he was getting alimony payments for all these games cartoons that he was shitting on. And he was
That's
even
right.
getting boards, and he was getting video copies of them, and he was just criticizing them. And people have told me who were friends with him during the period, it's like, well, move on. You've got the goodwill of the public. Do your own thing. Take
You can
advantage
make
of
anything. Yeah.
Take advantage of fucking Ari Emanuel representing you and trying to get you work.
Well, and the games people were taking the high road, which, only helped John K. spread his view of things even more so, because they
were all under contract, non-disclosure to talk. And the other thing is Nickelodeon was very adamant about just ignoring it. Like, they could have easily sent something to the AP about, like, okay, he's getting this money per episode and blah, blah, blah. And they could have said, well, and this is something a lot of people have denied, but the offer was to have games open, but still keep Spumco on to do A material. Okay, you obviously can't fucking run this thing. So we're going to have Bob take a lot of the crew over and do this stuff, but you can still stay on to do a couple episodes a season. He said no. So, you see how much this network was willing to bend over backwards for this narcissistic monster.
Who then tells everybody how he's this poor little genius taken advantage of by this giant company, which that's also why I was one of the folks who fell for John K. stories, was because I, even as a 12-year-old, I was like, the giant companies are mean. They fuck over guys like Jack Kirby and all my favorite comic artists. So clearly that's what's happening to John K. too. Boo, giant companies, which I still feel all the time. But
oh yeah, absolutely, it happens. It just this was the one time where it wasn't. This was like the 99 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
This was the one time.
Yeah, the execs that John K. and Spumco worked with, we should probably give a little more detail in case you don't know the story. The main issue was John K. being a perfectionist, being an abusive boss, and a terrible person. He was the bottleneck through which all work had to flow, and he would often just take people's work and redo it himself, all by himself, which would tie up cartoons in production. And I'm simplifying the story that Thad told so wonderfully in his book, but Nickelodeon was like, okay, here's more time, here's more money, here's more time, here's more money. And then eventually he was fired over The Cartoon Man's Best Friend, just because, like, here's a reason to fire him. We don't want this cartoon on our network. It's too violent, it's too disturbing, but we're actually firing you for everything you did before that. This is just the reason we can fire you for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I just want to say, like, I know there's a lot of, I don't like the word revisionist because people apply it to me a lot negatively, because revisionist to me means you're writing it the way it should have been written in the first place. But I don't know what you'd call it, but it's just wrong because, John K. is a terrible person, but I mean, he was, let's face it, he was the center of that universe. And, the cartoons did come out the way they were during those first 2 seasons because of his input. I mean, there's no way around that.
Yeah, he was so central to the show that it's hard to not. What I like about bringing up the games ones is to point out they still made good content without having this abusive monster in charge.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a danger of the whole, like, difficult genius myth, is that it excuses uses a lot of stuff that is like, at the very least, unprofessional, if not criminal, you know? But yes, the production of Ren and Stimpy, I guess, really was shaped and through the lens of John Kay and his work style, I guess.
Absolutely. These guys, even after years after at games, were going, well, what would John think of this? That's how they thought to the very end. Chris Riccardi, particularly, because I mean, I don't think many people have gone into detail about this, but Chris worshipped John. I mean, that was their relationship.
Wow.
You know, it sort of all fell apart right before the split between John and Nickelodeon, because Chris was dating John's longtime girlfriend after they had broken up, Lynn Naylor, and John found out and fired him on the spot and said, could have had everything, but you blew it.
Oh, wow. That's very professional. The professionalism of John Kay, I expect. Well, yeah, I mean, do you want to like get into Chris Riccardi?
Yeah.
And also Lynn Naylor, I guess, to an extent, too.
I did kind of bury the lead on this. Yes, the reason we're doing this show also is because Chris Riccardi died at a fairly young age, at 54. And I wanted to do an episode of Ren and Stimpy that he really put his heart into and that he really was the auteur of. And upon rereading Thad's book again, that I recall that you were writing about how artists on the show like Mike Kim and Chris Riccardi were sort of running their own episodes where they would take care of every part of production, from like layout to direction to even music sometimes.
Well, that's sort of an arrangement they did on their own. The screaming didn't stop after John Kay left. There was so much like inner turmoil on the production. You know, it was sort of like at games, now that the abusive father figure is gone, all the kids are going to fight amongst each other. They usually would just stay and cower together. But yeah, Chris and Mike Kim, they got their own deals where they would do the cartoons their way. They'd have really no input from Bob Camp at all. You know, I know it bugs Bob because people say that those are the best episodes of the game's years. But, you know, on the other hand, Bob took on the bulk of the production and it allowed them to do the cartoons their way. So, you know, you've got some not so good ones and some good ones versus these great ones where Mike and Chris sort of laid out most of these cartoons themselves. And you've got to emphasize how unusual that is in TV production, where what the director or what one artist lays out the entire picture. That's like unheard of. That was how it was done in the old days. The director would usually be the main character layout artist, or they'd have a character layout artist. And with these Ren and Stimpy's, it's ironic. It's taking it more back to the classic cartoon era than John Kay did, where he would have all the artists following his roughs and, you know, torturing them, versus someone like Chris Riccardi actually doing all the work themselves. Hermit Ren does have some work from other guys on it. I'm not really sure which scenes are whose, except in a few cases, but there was some work by Mike Kim on this, some work by Lynn, some by Don Shank, and some by newcomer Tom McGrath. That's what impressed a lot of people. These were these auteur situations at games, and it's a freedom these people never experienced again in their careers, unfortunately.
They all got spoiled in this situation.
They got spoiled. They got spoiled by the chaos.
Yeah, even though I guess they were kind of killing themselves, because in your book, Thad, you point out that a lot of these cartoons that they ran themselves, a lot of them were done in their own free time. Like, you take them home with you, you compose the music at home, you work on them at home. It was not like a 9 to 5.
Oh, no 9 to 5s on Ren and Stimpy at all, ever.
Yeah. And Chris Riccardi was hired basically off of Beanie and Cecil, where John Kay found a lot of other artists, the short-lived reboot of Beanie and Cecil.
Yeah, that's where most of the Ren and Stimpy crew became friends, was on the Beanie and Cecil show, which lasted 5 episodes. Yeah, Chris was from New York. He came over. I think he did some freelance work on DuckTales. He did some work for Ralph Bakshi. He did some music for the pilot of Ren and Stimpy, and then he got hired on the series. And he was one of the main people, one of the only people who could actually draw Ren. There's only a handful of people who could draw Ren.
Throughout recorded history, there are like 10 people who can draw Ren correctly. Have you tried to draw Ren? It's impossible. It never looks right.
No. There was John, Bob Camp, Jim Smith, Chris, Lynn, Mike Kim, Vince Waller, and of course the animators. They actually have to draw it themselves too. So, but yeah, those were the main people who could draw Ren.
Yeah, you mentioned his music. He is actually playing the bass on the Ren and Stimpy theme. And I believe he wrote the tune of Happy Happy Joy Joy.
Really?
He co-wrote it with John and I think Jim Smith and Scott Hummel, who were the other members of Der Screaming Lederhosen.
You probably mentioned it on our Happy Stimpy's Invention, What a Cartoon, but I had forgotten that, man. The Reccardi is so, like, just on that alone is a pretty impressive resume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was, he always said that he always had one foot out of the business because animation is terrible. He was an amazing musician, and his paintings, if you look them up, they're just gorgeous. Yeah, it's unfortunately I've never bought one, so I mean, better buy them now, I guess.
Yeah.
Cynically enough.
But upon reading your book, I found that his greatest strength was layout. There's a lot of great Chris Riccardi layout drawings in your book. And in fact, a few years ago, I commissioned Bob Camp to do a drawing for me. It's one of my favorite scenes. It's in Stimpy's cartoon show of Ren and Stimpy in Wilbur Cobb's pants before he throws the trigger on the electric chair. And I found out that is just Bob Camp doing his version of a Chris Riccardi layout. Chris Riccardi laid out that entire scene, which is one of my favorites.
All the scenes in Wilbur Cobb's office.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I think that
Chris Riccardi.
Up there with Stimpy's Invention, that is probably my favorite scene in Ren and Stimpy, and that's all Chris Riccardi drawings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's usually the strongest moments in games are usually where Bob Camp or Chris Riccardi or Mike Kim had the most drawings. So
every shot of Wilbur Cobb's decomposition is just amazing. Look, and also you mentioned in your book too that like Lynn Naylor is his wife was such a underrated, unknown factor in Ren and Stimpy too.
Absolutely, Stimpy was her cat. I mean, there's no. I mean, how more integral can you get than that? Yeah, Lynn. I mean, she co-created the characters with John, which John will emphatically deny. But yeah, she's very soft-spoken. She's very quiet, doesn't want to put herself out there as much. But yeah, it's like, and another thing you got to credit Lynn with is this whole movement of like modern design in cartoons, like, the flat graphics. That's all down to her. I mean, if it works in a cartoon, chances are her name's somewhere in the credits. And it really started at games after John K. left. They got a little more bolder in the graphic design choices. I think it really starts, and she directed. Well, I gotta say, when she came back to the show, one of her stipulations for working on it, she would not work on any cartoons with Ren and Stimpy. So there was a lot of baggage with that. That's why they sort of started doing all those offshoots or one shots with the different characters without Ren and Stimpy in the games era. Yeah, but with Chris, so he came on, did a lot of amazing boards. He did half of Space Madness with Jim Smith. He did Fire Dogs with Jim Smith. And he did Ren's Toothache himself.
Oh,
more great drawings.
That's I gotta say, that's when I stopped watching reruns of Ren and Stimpy because the tooth, I don't know what it is, but teeth stuff gets me the most. Like even playing around with shit, which they do a lot, like shattering of the teeth and pulling out his nerve endings was just too much for me. I just couldn't. I had to stop.
I couldn't look away. It was horrifying. And I think that gave a generation of children nightmares.
Yes.
Ren pulling out his nerve endings.
It got them to brush their teeth, though.
That's true.
I guess so. If it paid off in the end there, but Jesus Christ.
But based on your book, that it sounds like Chris sort of just fell into being a director. And actually, he didn't direct too many things after Ren and Stimpy. He was really into doing storyboards and layouts. I recall from your book that he was basically assigned to fix things like the Royal Canadian Kilted Yaxman and one other one, Man's Best Friend, which he has co-directing credits with John Kay.
He has a co-directing credit on Dog Show.
Oh, Dog Show, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one John didn't really like where it was going because they forced him to rewrite a lot of it. The original board has some very homophobic stuff in it.
That sounds like John Kay.
You know how it's the announcer? The salesman. The salesman is the judge. It was originally supposed to be this very effeminate guy. George Zucker is like, a pansy! Oh my God!
Jesus.
This is in the board. I'm not making this up.
No.
Yeah, I mean, in the final cartoon, he's like, a man's man.
Yeah, that's ironically. Yeah, that's ironic. And he sort of tossed it to Chris to direct, and Chris basically was a glorified assistant director. I mean, those co-direction cartoons in the Spumco years, they're really John Kay's. He's just whipping those other guys to do the stuff.
Oddly specific Henry story here real quick. That the dog show episode. I remember my family, we went to go out to a dinner that night. We came home, we stopped at a gas station, and I bought Sonic Comics #1, the Archie Comics Sonic book, brought it home, and was like, yes, we made it in time to watch the new Ren and Stimpy on Snick, and I'm flipping through my Sonic comic book while watching that.
It's a great day for artwork everywhere.
Yeah, then so dog show, basically it was Chris was fixing other people's drawings before turning them over to John so John can fix them again. And then he was starting Kilted Yaxman and he got fired, and then he took it over at Games again. And Chris really credited Bob Jakes with directing that cartoon at Carbuncle because Chris didn't really have a feel for it at that point. And a little later on, Bob showed him the ropes about, like, okay, this is what you did wrong in the production, and here's how you do it right. And Chris became a much better artist and director after that experience. And then you see the cartoons he directed after at Games, after Yaxman, Hard Times for Haggis, which I think should be studied in film schools, frankly.
That is such a beautiful short. He did that with Lynn Naylor. What's the second short he did with Lynn Naylor?
The second short, Hard Days Luck, is what he did with Lynn.
I should have this
Hard Times for Haggis. Oh my, I think that's the zenith of the series. I'm sorry it'll hurt feelings, but like I don't think there was ever any better art direction or color styling ever in the show.
Oh man, those Haggis McHaggis cartoons, I should have hated them. In fact, the third one is really bad, but Chris Reccardi did not work on that one as far as I know. But the first two barely have Ren and Stimpy in them. I think the second one doesn't at all, but they're just great. It stars Alan Young as basically the real Scrooge McDuck, just a furious Scotsman who's constantly screaming. And Alan Young was probably in his 70s at that point. He got it. He like totally understood. They made him scream as much as they made Billy West scream on that show.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the Ren and Stimpy style of voice direction, is just a lot of screaming. But it's not annoying screaming. Like there's so much screaming in cartoons today, but this is actually the screaming has a purpose.
Because everyone's insane, and they're all like insane people in one way or another, just scraping their neuroses against each other.
Upon having to do clips for the show, I just love the hot mics on this program. Just like they blew out every microphone. You can hear every mic sizzling when Billy West or like Harris Pete are screaming into them. They're such hot mics, and I love them. And I will say, this Chris Reccardi cartoon we're talking about today is one of the much flatter Games ones. Flatter not in terms of, that's not a criticism, but it is more of the UPA style. Would you agree with me, Thad?
Absolutely, yeah. This is them trying to do the psychodramas in a flatter style. Absolutely.
And I know for a fact that John K. hates when the cartoons look like this. In fact, he recorded a ton of commentaries on cartoons he never worked on for those DVDs, and it's just him complaining constantly, like, that drawing is too flat! Who drew that? Like, just constantly screaming, complaining. I think at one point, Bill Ray, who did a lot of the background paintings, just like, okay, John, calm down. Like, there are good things about these cartoons. Like, he's sitting with someone who worked on them with Games people, but he has to listen to his old boss just bitch and whine about how every drawing is wrong.
It's funny. There's two sets of Games cartoons, and the first one is just sort of a circle jerk of John Kay and his cronies, but the producers, this is how ignorant people can be. It's like, wait a minute, you didn't actually work on these? And he's like, we gave you money. You better bring in some people that actually worked on them. That's why Bill Ray and Scott Wills are on the third set. I couldn't believe Jim Gomez told me that he actually asked him to do commentary. I couldn't believe he had the nerve to ask Jim, but he's like, well, can you pay me? And they're like, crickets. It's like, well, you're getting paid, right? Crickets. All right, thanks, John. Hear from you in another 14 years.
That's classic him. Well, now this DVD should probably be taken off shelves and just be put in the Exhibit A through Z lockers.
That is unfortunate.
No, I don't want to joke about that stuff. It
was like John Kay taunting the police.
Yeah, literally. It's not. But it's not. I don't want to joke about it. It's not funny. Those are horrible. Like his literal victims are in the videos with him,
looking very uncomfortable.
Yes, yeah. As he says.
That's the adult party set.
Yes, yeah.
So
yeah.
people aren't confused that they're all over the sets. That's just the
Yeah.
adult party
I think
set.
some of the,
Yeah,
the,
sorry.
the women are on the commentaries, though.
I think on Sven, one of them is.
Katie Rice was on the Sven Hoek track,
And it is
it's very-
uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable moments.
But on a happier note, I did want to go over a few of the things that
Yes.
Reccardi worked on. I mean, if you go to IMDb, he basically worked on everything you loved from Ren and Stimpy onwards. He just never got his own show. So I could spend half an hour talking about everything he did, but I just pulled out a few notable ones. Just in TV, like he did work in movies as late as things like the Lego Movie and things like that. So Tiny Toon Adventures, Ren and Stimpy, The Simpsons, Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, My Life as a Teenage Robot, SpongeBob SquarePants, and a ton of other stuff. Like he was all over. Basically, if you look at what Hermit Ren looks like and what the Haggis McHaggis cartoons look like, that is what the mid to late 90s look was. And things like Clone High would end up looking like that too.
No, the enormity of his work didn't hit me sadly until his passing, because we recorded the My Life as a Teenage Robot one like within a week of that, and his credit is all over that show, especially the movie they did of My Life as a Teenage, TV movie.
Yeah.
But he's on there, and that's when it really hit me how much he worked on all of these animated series I watched from the 90s and aughts, and now it just strikes me just how much influence he had on my childhood too.
We just did the What a Cartoon movie about the Tiny Toons Adventures movie, and he's
Yeah.
on there. And I was looking through all of his credits. He did some weird stuff that I wouldn't expect him to do. Like he basically storyboarded all of the Ricky Gervais show.
That was the weirdest one to me, but now when I watch clips of it, I was like, oh yeah, I totally see it
Yeah.
here, which is like, that is so much better than that deserves.
It is,
because
yeah.
It's just an easy ass cash in of like Ricky Gervais he recorded podcasts in 2006. He was one of the first to it. And then he's like, well, just animate him again. We say funny stories, just draw over them. Like, fuck it. And Reccardi was way too good for that shit. But
Yeah, I was skimming through them on YouTube after I realized he did the storyboards, and they're all great drawings.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear Ricky Gervais talk about things, but it's
No.
like, oh, these are great drawings and layouts.
Gervais is just Barney Rubble too. Like, he
Yeah,
draws.
that's true. He really is. He really is on that.
Yeah, and that was the tragedy of his passing. He was supposed to head up a new shorts program at Nickelodeon.
Oh,
Like literally, he just got the gig, and
that's so sad.
one unspoken thing is that Chris really was a de facto showrunner for years. It was just the studios have these practices of hiring these fresh young talents right out of Cal Arts to do us. I'm not going into the Cal Arts style.
No.
But no,
we know you don't believe in that. It's okay.
This is a real thing, though. They'll hire kids right out of Cal Arts or wherever, because they like their portfolios and like, oh, we're going to give you a show, but we're going to have this old timer run it. That's basically what Chris was doing for years, because he was an absolute professional, consummate professional.
I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, you want Chris to get proper credit, or the Chris Riccardis of the world to get proper credit, but like running your own television show is not easy. Like and you kind of need to learn on the job, especially if like it seems like Nick or Disney or Cartoon Network, if they just want to hire somebody fresh before somebody else hires them, then they can't go through what the usual way of like, you work on this show and then you learn your craft and then you run your own show. It's that sounds like an easy, a simple enough fix of like, well, we'll partner you with this person who actually knows how to run a show now and in a way train you.
And for the sake of PR, it is much more interesting to hear like, oh, this young person got their own TV show.
Yeah.
Not like this 50-year-old man who worked on cartoons in the 90s got his own TV show, because it's happened before. And if you look at, I've seen some things he's worked on, like if you look at things like a regular show, he was a big guy in the first season along with Bill Oakley, like two seasoned veterans of TV writing and animation, helping get new people off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad, but it just like shows you like how screwed up the system can be, because it's like, well, why doesn't Chris Riccardi have his own fucking show? It's insane.
Yeah. I had never seen it before, but Bob showed me like that pilot, the modifiers pilot. I'd never seen that
Yeah.
Oh,
before.
yeah, it's a beautiful looking thing, isn't it?
It's really pretty. Done with Lynn. Chris does all the music. It's a very Artur project.
Yeah, and it's totally, when I watched it, I was like, this is a show. Like, this is a show right here. This could have gotten at least a 26 episode order. Like, maybe you've got fucking Paul Rugg.
Yeah, that's right. As the villain, right? Yeah. I wanted to go over a few of the shorts that Reccardi did. They're all on YouTube. They're pretty easy to find. One of my favorite ones is a weird one that he did for Cartoon Network with a bunch of other Ren and Stimpy people during the run of Ren and Stimpy called Buy One, Get One Free. Thad, have you seen this? Are you aware of this?
This was What a Cartoon was a little after. There might have been some overlap, but it was after. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Who were the directors of that one? Charlie Bean and Carrie Yost, and was there a third guy? It was a three-way one, wasn't it?
Yeah, but Chris and Lynn were both working on it as well for layouts.
That's a gorgeous cartoon. But that was the thing about that series is that like some of like that one in particular, it's like the best of the Warner one shots. Like I don't really see how much further you could have gone with these characters, but why not do some one shots like that? But
yeah, it's a beautiful cartoon. It can't go anywhere, but it's got a lot of the Ren and Stimpy stuff you love, including a full-on freak out at the end.
I mean, those two characters, the cats, who I would assume would be in the next ones, like they'd have some other adventure, but yeah, you don't really get a sense of what your main character cat even is. Like it's as an introduction to characters or a pilot, it's not a great pilot, but it's just such a fun story. I remember seeing it as a kid and just thinking, I thought it was like these guys are ripping off Ren and Stimpy without realizing it.
They made Ren and Stimpy, so they can rip it off.
Yeah. Actually, another thing in that Wild Cartoon Kingdom magazine I got from Chris Kohler was a Schnookums and Meat funny cartoon show poster.
Ugh.
Why were they printing that?
Yeah,
they were the Ren and Stimpy backers. Who knows?
Weird.
But yeah, other shorts that Chris did that I could find are things like, so number one, buy one, get one free. Watch it on YouTube. It's a very funny short with cats. It's very Ren and Stimpy. There's also things like Imp Inc., Medlin Meadows, and I'm sure he's worked on other shorts. These are just the ones that he directed, or
Medlin
he had
Meadows,
a major hand
that's
in.
a very fun. I like that one a lot. You can always tell a Reccardi layout because of some of the arm movements. You can definitely see some Ren in that alien or whatever it is that's in that short. And Billy West is the one who pointed out to me, like, if you notice, there'll be a lot of poses where the character's front teeth will be out and the lip will be up, because that's an actual face Chris would make. He was putting a lot of himself in it.
So we're going to get into the cartoon very shortly here, Thad. Is there anything else you want to say about Chris or how his work is reflected in Hermit Ren?
I think with Chris, I mean, you can't really underrate Chris's importance in the modern animation era of television and some features. It was something Steve Loader said to me. Bob Camp was, he was just trying to do appealing, funny stuff, and Chris was just trying to change the world with his art. And it's just, he was always giving 110% to anything he did, just really dynamic posing and staging. I think he was easily the most influential board artist of all time. And Hermit Ren really reflects that. One thing I want to say about Hermit Ren that's really separates it from a lot of cartoons today is that it gives you real time with the characters, and it gives time to develop them. You really get to know Ren in this picture, and it's even more disgusting than anything John Kay's done, I would say, as far as delving into a character's psychosis.
Reccardi really spent the time to make his own vision of a crazy Ren cartoon here that's very, very separate from the other ones, I'd say, even.
And I think it goes darker than John Kay's Ren as the angry dad having a nervous breakdown. It's more personal, I think. It's more inside.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. None of that angry dad shit that's like popping up. But yeah, I guess we can talk about the cartoon finally.
We'll take a brief break here, and then we'll get right into talking about Hermit Ren.
Country reeks of trees, our yaks are really large, and they smell like rotting beef carcasses. And we have to clean up after them, and our saddle sores are the best. We proudly wear women's clothing, and searing sand goes up our skirts. And the buzzards they soar overhead, and poisonous snakes will devour us whole. Our bones will bleach in the sun, and we will probably go
Ooh-wee. Do you smell something? It's not your imagination. It's Ren and Stimpy in the stinkiest stories. Stinky. Stinky.
I'm surrounded by filthy, dirty, stinky hairball!
Collect the stinkiest, most disgusting episodes of Ren and Stimpy. Slow-mo them. Freeze frame the most repulsive scenes. Gross out your friends and family with Ren and Stimpy's stinkiest stories. Available only from Nickelodeon Home Video.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the What a Cartoon Break. I am your bloated sack of protoplasm, Bob Mackey, who is here with me for this break.
Nose Goblin Collector Henry Gilbert. Hi.
That's right, we're getting disgusting because we're talking about Ren and Stimpy today. And in case you're wondering, like, hey, you know what? I like you guys, I like your podcast. Could I possibly have more podcasts? Well, yes, but you gotta pay up. And if you want to pay up, you go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, and for the tiny, minuscule, barely noticeable price of $5 a month, if you go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons and pay that, you'll have access to everything behind our $5 paywall. Miniseries, including things like Talking Futurama, Talking Critic, and the newest miniseries, Talking of the Hill, an entire 13-episode exploration of the first series of King of the Hill. And we have a new paywalled miniseries coming up in August.
Yes, plus you'll get access to this podcast without all these dumb ads in it of me and Bob talking.
How I hate them.
and also the same with Talking Simpsons. And you'll get an RSS feed you can just plug into any podcast device of your choice and give a listen to them early. Not to mention you'll get access to our huge backlog of interviews that we've done with animation greats, many of them that worked on The Simpsons, and that includes directors on the shows like Mark Kirkland and David Silverman. Legends all, including folks who have worked on the show since the very beginning on the shorts.
And if you want to jump up to the $10 level, you'll get access to our newest podcast, the What a Cartoon Movie Podcast. It's a monthly podcast where every month we break down a movie with our, total research and clip treatment. The newest one for June is the Tiny Toon Adventures direct-to-video movie, How I Spent My Vacation. So we break that down for you for close to 4 hours long. You'll learn the entire history of Tiny Toons, and then we go through the entire movie clip by clip and show you why it's hilarious and one of the most gorgeous pieces of animation that was ever released to video.
If you were to sign up now, you'd get access to 24 hours of movie content just to fill your day right there, plus all of our previous $10 and up video extras. But if you wanted to hear me and Bob do What a Cartoon style breakdown, triple length even sometimes, of different films, you sign up now, you'll get to hear Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Kiki's Delivery Service, Akira, A Goofy Movie, The Secret of Nim, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and in July, when a new one comes out, you'll get to hear it there first too. That's all there for you if you sign up at the $10 level, and if you were to up your pledge from $5 to $10, all those would start appearing in your RSS feed now. Now. You definitely want them. Me and Bob work super hard on them. Sign up. Patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
Henry, we like episode breakdowns, but we're about to hear Ren have one of his famous nervous breakdowns with our discussion of Hermit Ren coming up next. So we're back and we're talking about Hermit Ren, the season premiere of season 4 of the Ren and Stimpy show. And I have to say that I saw a bit of this before it aired. I couldn't find a clip of this online and I was dying to find it because Billy West went on Jay Leno to promote.
Oh, I've got that on my books page. I just put that up.
Oh my God, Thad, you have to link us to it, or we'll link our audience to it, because
Yes.
Billy West was on Jay Leno. I remember this like concretely in my head, because if Billy West was going to be somewhere, of course I was going to watch him.
Even Jay Leno.
Even Jay Leno. And he showed Jay Leno a clip of Hermit Ren. It's the clip of Ren freaking out with all the different Rens. And when they cut back to Jay, it is Krusty the Clown with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth going, "What the hell was that?" So, yes, it was Krusty basically having a worker and parasite reaction.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was with your best friend Bill Maher.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
wow.
boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. This is more attractive by the second, this clip.
And I remember...
oh, yeah, I'm looking at my link right now. It's like, here's a real time capsule. Billy West appearance on Tonight Show with Jay Leno from July 26th, 94. Ignore the other Bill.
Boy, this episode premiered in, I believe, October, so maybe they thought it was going to start earlier this season.
All right.
So in July, wow. So I saw a clip of this months before it even aired on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, I guess they just sat on it until fall premiere. I mean,
They would sit on stuff because they knew the other stuff was going to be late.
oh yeah, that's right. That's why it was like almost a year off between Ren and Stimpy. When the Army episode debuted on Snick, I was like, new Ren and Stimpy. What?
I've been starving. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is production season 3, Thad, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there were with games. There were 14 for season 3, and then 20 for season 4. There was no real season 5. That's just something programming did because
yeah.
the stuff was so late. They said, "Oh, well, we kind of got enough right now, so let's just do the last 10 as a season 5."
It's kind of built out of leftovers.
Yeah.
But yeah, credits on this episode. So story, as Thad said earlier, story by Bob Camp, Jim Gomez, Chris Reccardi, and Bill Ray. And it's storyboarded and directed by Chris Reccardi. So a lot of Chris Reccardi went to this cartoon.
Yeah, it's I mean, in this that strikes me right there that like in most cartoons in '94, very rarely would storyboarder also get director credit. Like it's hard for me to remember any cartoons that were contemporary with it that got that kind of credit.
Yeah, there are 14 seconds or 15 seconds of credits just for the artist up front. You sit on that drawing of that cave for a long time with all the names flashing, but it just made me remember like this show really gave credit to the artist and what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell our audience out there, I said this before about certain cartoons, but please watch this cartoon. It's only 17 minutes long. It's one of the few like full-length Ren and Stimpy's. We're not going to talk about the short that follows this because I think it's stupid and bad, but it's all right.
It's all right. I mean, anything that mocks the elderly eating mush, I'm okay with that. Though,
Yeah.
Though it borders on anti-Semitism a few times with their old Jew characters in Miami.
It does a bit.
But
It's a fun caricature.
sure.
Yeah.
When one was like my husband Irving, I was like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
guys. But well, also in that one, after seeing a disgusting Ren so much in this one, that Untamed Kingdom where Ren is a corpse, I was like, oh no, Ren. It's a little break from Ren for this one.
That is true. Yeah, he's like a taxidermied animal?
Yes,
Yeah.
he had been ripped apart in the previous one, as Stimpy would say. So he's just not there until the end where Stimpy is sewing his corpse back together.
Okay, I see. So yeah, I will tell people to watch this ahead of time because it's all about the animation and the artwork. In fact, I have a bunch of clips. The first half of the clips are very short because the first half of this cartoon is just a lot of action and, stage directions and stuff like that. The last half is Ren just talking to himself and freaking out. So I have a lot of clips of that up front, but please, it's real easy to find on whatever. Just search Hermit Ren. You'll find every Daily Motion and Vimeo and whatever.
Vimeo was the best one I saw. It's one of the weirdest things on the Wikia page for this episode. They just linked to the Vimeo of this full episode that is clearly like a DVD rip. I don't know how it's legal, but hey, don't tell on them. But that's where it is. Well, because Ren and Stimpy, I think, is off Hulu now. Like, I think the Nick stuff's gone from there.
I believe so, yeah.
I don't know why it was all pulled.
Coincidence.
Oh, well. Yeah, coincidence.
But yes.
Just, last April, nothing's on. It still airs. What is it? Teen Nick or Nick Splat? They showed at 3 a.m. now. So
But yes, we'll be describing a lot of what happens in this cartoon, and you might be thinking at home, that's not funny. Wait until you see it. These drawings, I swear, they're so nice. This episode begins, though, with one of the, I think this is the newer Ren and Stimpy house of this era where they're living in an upside down cow.
The door is a cow's asshole.
Yes.
Like that, just to let you know where they're starting. They're starting at the rectum in this one.
I don't know if Ren and Stimpy are small or the cow is just huge, but they live in a giant upside down cow.
I love their inconsistent sizes. That's one of my favorite things, which people would certainly complain about on Reddit now, where this is a new show. Like, Ren was this tall in that shot, but now he's a rocks this big.
I like how they would play with where they live and how big they are. I believe at one point they were living in a birdhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, this that was one of the things they fought with the story editors and executives originally. It's like, well, no, they need to have a consistent living place. It's like, no, they don't. Just it's funny. They're living in a different place. You know, Bugs Bunny wasn't always in the same place. Three Stooges were never in the same place.
It's just a different adventure each time.
Throwback to that.
Yeah, I do always love their domestic situation. Is that they get away with just being a gay couple because Yogi and Boo Boo did it. You know?
Yeah. I love the episodes where, I mean, they're clearly like sort of a married couple, and Ren kind of has like a Mad Men style job, like a 60s office job where he's all disheveled at the end of the day. He's got the little hat on and the suit. I think it's so cute that he has like a regular like middle management job he has to go to during the day while Stimpy, I don't know, does housework, burns his chicken, things like that. So yeah, the episode opens with, we cut to the inside of the cow. Stimpy is doing something very annoying. He's playing Kumbaya on the accordion. That will keep happening throughout this episode. And the accordion, especially in the 90s, was the perfect comedy instrument, the most annoying of instruments.
And singing Kumbaya, which is just an annoying song on its own, but on the accordion too. And that Billy West as Stimpy is at his most infuriating ever. He's just like, someone's dying, my like, lurid.
Lurid, yeah. I didn't get clips of that because it is very annoying.
Yes.
Oh no, I love that. It's
perfectly annoying.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's okay. This was another thing. I'll say it before we hear a clip. Billy West is the perfect Stimpy. Like other people who played Stimpy, they do an impression and they're good, but he's the perfect man for it. But as a kid, and it still kind of follows me. Like his Ren always feels like an impression to me, and he does a good impression at times. Like some of his rants in this are some of the best he's had. But there is 1 second of John K's Ren in this episode, and it just took me out of it. Like, oh yeah, that's Ren's real voice. Like, I hate complimenting John Kay, but like he has a better Ren, and it always took me out of it a little bit in these games ones.
I will ask that about this because I agree with you, Henry. He is the lesser Ren. He grew on me over time, and I think Billy West's performance really improved. Where at first he was too much of the Peter Lorre, and then he gets down here. Like he gets what was the singer that we were talking about that Ren's voice is based on? Yeah, Burl Ives. He's more like. I like when he goes for more of the Burl Ives / John Kay, because if you've heard John Kay talk a lot, at this point we all have, at a certain point it sounds like Billy West is doing a parody of John Kay. Like the way John Kay talks, the very matter-of-fact dad, angry dad style of talking John Kay does. Like I like that, especially in this era, Billy West was really finding his own Ren. Instead of just being like the kind of too much Peter Lorre, too nasal. How do you feel, Thad?
What needs to be stated up front is that Billy was supposed to be Ren.
That's right.
But John was very strange about it. He wanted to do the voice himself. I think that's really what he wanted to do originally. He waffled with it for a really long time. I actually have a copy of the original sign-in sheet when he was auditioning Ren.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
There was Carlos, who was Rocco Carlos?
Carlos as Rocky?
As Rocky, yeah, he auditioned. Joe Lasky did.
Whoa! Joe Lasky is Ren, crazy.
That would have been great.
Frank Welker did. A couple of others, but it was just some sort of game he was playing. But he really just wanted to do the voice himself because he more or less is Ren. So that's that's just him.
I mean, maybe if I had heard in my child brain, whoever I heard first doing it, I would think as legitimate and I would reject you. If Billy West did it first and then John Kay took over as a child, I might still have like, oh no, Billy West is the perfect one for it because I heard it first. So it could just be a little bit of that, like, inconquerable nostalgia there.
I do like that after John Kay left, both in parody and in sort of the way they would write him, Ren would often be a caricature of John Kay.
Yes.
Or they'd be doing jokes about him via Ren.
Well, I'm glad they eased off the dad stuff a little more when he left, though. I mean, Ren totally is, in his return home, the horribly frazzled father that you're terrified of pissing off when he gets home from work.
That's right. We just see a shot of the door And Ren is clearly arriving at home. He's screaming at a woman to get the dog off of his lawn. He clearly injures the dog. And so
it's a beautiful setup because I don't have the length of time, but it's just this shot of the door and you hear him pull in and crash the car.
Yeah.
Look, where are you going? You fall.
And yes, so Ren, after trudging himself across the living room, is finally home. Here's a clip.
Ren, you're home. Did you have a nice day at work?
Fired.
Your dinner's in the oven. I'll get it myself.
Yes, the clips up front are going to be very short, but that's when you hear the fanfare, it's a great classic Ren and Stimpy painting of Ren just hunched over. There's a dagger in his back. There's a car tire tread on his back as well, and he's holding a pink slip.
Oh, and shoe steps and shoe footprints in his back too.
Yeah,
he walked all over.
And the pink slip is signed by the producer of Ren and Stimpy, Jim Ballantyne.
It's so good, and yeah, also just that like his barely contained rage of like he's like, I don't want to scream at you right now, like I'll get it myself. And the way his head is framed, like the square of his head when he says that.
The very interesting flat drawings that you'll see a lot of in this episode.
Now, Ren is normally wrong, but Stimpy is infuriatingly awful here. Like he's one thing like, look, if it's your turn to make dinner, you can't burn, but maybe it's Ren's fault for trusting Stimpy to actually make food by now. He should know.
He doesn't even register that it's burnt. He's just resigned to it.
He puts it directly. So Ren goes to the kitchen, opens the door of the oven, and there's a charred chicken inside. So he sticks a fork in it. And I think work has just destroyed his brains, but he sticks it directly in his mouth. And I love how his tongue just naturally just sticks to it.
Yeah. Well, when he opens his mouth giant and wide, his tongue is just like a mound on top of his teeth. Like, so it's right there to meet it. And yeah, it sticks to it and then just rips off, and just his like kind of tattered, torn up tongue as he screams is so horrifying. Like the mouth stuff always gets me the most in Ren and Stimpy cartoons.
There's a lot of mouth and eye stuff in Ren and Stimpy. But so Stimpy rushes to the rescue, gets some curdled milk. She's just shaking gray milk into a glass. Gives it to Ren. Ren gets even angrier.
The animation of him spitting as he tastes like so disgusting but amazing. And I thought it was going to end with him when he screams at him, spits out a big chunk on his face, but it looks like he spit it all out beforehand.
Yeah, it's the perfect color for that milk. Just gray milk.
And then when I watched that Modifiers cartoon, it had a curdled milk thing in it too. I think Reccardi is a fan of curdled milk.
There's a lot of curdled milk gags Ren and Stimpy too. So it had to be, maybe it's Reccardi.
I mean, children understand what's disgusting about curdled milk. Like you can count on kids to get that reference too.
I think some of these drawings here are Tom McGrath's in this milk scene. They're a little weaker than you'd expect. I think it was because Tom was just starting out and he really blossomed.
Yeah, I noticed the scene of Ren.
Teenage Stimpy, which is another.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, I noticed that when Ren was burning his mouth on the chicken and turning his head back and forth, that was a little weak too compared to what else we see in the cartoon.
Yeah. Oh man, me and Bob were sharing GIFs or like screenshots of our favorites on Twitter. I shared mine. It felt very Chris Reccardi in the background. Stimpy with his mouth open, screaming as he plays, while Ren is like hobbled against the doorway with his head in his hands.
Yeah, and there's
so funny.
There's just like a big burst of white that's focused on Stimpy, like accentuating how annoying he is for Ren.
Love that shot.
It's a really great shot. But yes, after all of this, Ren wants to be alone.
You stay away from me. I just want to be alone.
And then Stimpy just happily chugs down the disgusting milk.
Oh, God, yeah. When he put it in his mouth, I was like, no, please don't. But of course he has to drink it. Like, it wasn't gross enough that it was there. It also has to let you know, like, Stimpy thinks this is great. Chunky gray milk is his favorite.
He was probably aging the milk.
Sorry, I don't want to retch too much for our listeners on this.
It's just a cartoon.
Yes.
Come on, it's 25 years old. Take some anti-nausea liquid. So now we have all these clips are kind of weird because I had to find the right place to clip them, and again, a lot of it is driven by the art. But after this, Ren freaks out for sure, and here's a longer clip.
That's what I need. Is a good shave. Where's my razor?
And Stimpy is hammering a nail into the wall with it.
Here, Ren. Why you? I can't take anymore. I've had it with you. You and the whole world. I'm going where I can be alone. Once and for all. And I'm never coming back.
And he trudges back and throws the accordion to Stimpy's mouth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, watch this cartoon. They were so fortunate to be given a performance like Billy West to base their drawings on, because I can see the drawings in my head by listening to that clip.
Yeah, that and another thing is with Hermit Ren, they really give you time to build. Like Ren knows that this is a daily hell, but and you're going through the motions, and then finally he just can't. Like he says, I can't take it anymore, and it finally snaps. It's one thing they got wrong a lot of the times at games, and in a lot of cartoons today, everything starts off at the ceiling. You're building up to this. And you take a couple of minutes, and that's something they were really fortunate to do here.
Yeah, it was good that we see what must be every day of their domestic life in this version of the Ren and Stimpy reality.
No, I noticed a theme in this one that's in a lot of my favorite Ren and Stimpy's, which is like the episode starts with, a shot of home life that is hanging by a thread of normalcy, and then it finally all shatters. And then they eventually realize, like, oh, I made my life worse, but I thought this saved me, but my horrible life was actually better than what I had now. Like, it reminds me, too, of the one of the earliest ones, the Money Mud Skipper one, Stimpy Gets Famous. Like, it's, or the Hairball Factory one, where it's just like, or the Christmas Fart. Sorry if whatever it's called. But in those, it's like, it's a normal day, and then a crazy thing happens that sends them both in like insane directions.
Yeah, we'll usually open with like Ren reading a newspaper or just trying to be a human, just do a normal adult human thing with a little fez on, perhaps.
I love his little fez and smoking jacket, especially if he's smoking when he actually does it. I also just love the shot of like Stimpy choosing a razor of all things to hammer in a nail, and then the nail is going through his thumb. He doesn't.
I think that's a Mike Kim drawing.
Okay. Yeah, also, we can't do this in cartoons anymore, and it's a cheap joke, but it always makes me laugh, a character going, "Duh," especially in the middle of a freak out. There's another character, there's another duh idiot in this episode that I just laugh every time I see him.
Yeah.
They really can't do that anymore. They really don't like you doing it.
I understand why,
but
the word duh is funny.
It's funny.
When paired with a stupid expression, I like it.
No, I like Stimpy is not disabled. He can do things. He's not, but
he's stupid in the way all cats are stupid.
But yeah, I think on Ren and Stimpy they got away with a slight amount of this just because they developed the species of human known as the lummox. Like they could get away a lot of those jokes. Which in that cat cartoon, the buy one get one free, there's lummoxes at the end of that tearing that man apart.
Oh yeah,
like,
you're right.
Straight up the lummox guys
with the same like curly arm hair.
Yeah.
I think Jim Smith did work on it, so he probably did some of that.
I was shocked at their restraint that they didn't show skin ripping off his face using it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that was a censor thing. They're like, you can't draw. Like, he can come out with his bones sticking out, but you can't actually rip flesh from the skin.
I did like seeing his skin hanging off his face, and I feel like they can hurt any character as much as they can as long as he's fine in the next shot, as Marge would say. He was resting comfortably. Breathing comfortably.
Well, that was a John K. no from Sven when he and then also you get a lot of giant fingers in this, as you would in most Ren and Stimpy's.
Yeah.
But in a couple of this ones where he's telling off Stimpy, there's joints in it. It's not just like the penis finger that Bob Camp draws.
Yeah, what was the giant finger thing? That is it the piss off John K. or what was going on with that?
It's just a trope they brought back from Chuck Jones.
Okay.
A lot of point. There's one in particular in Beanstalk Bunny that Daffy Duck does. It's just, an homage, and John's pissed off that everyone else picked up on it.
Yeah, I love whenever they just get too big, just like one giant index figure,
Yes,
usually in someone's face, with like a
But
really
Chris-
detailed
but Chris-
nail.
What Chris is doing here, he's even experimenting with that. Like, it's not the same finger every time. Like,
Yeah, that's what I love
once
about
and
it.
for all is like this disgustingly disjointed finger.
Yeah,
It's great.
I love how crooked it is. Or there's another one too where like it's again not like I say penis, but like sausagey. Instead, it's like wider. It's like the knuckle is just huge where it's pointing at somebody. And you need funny fingers when so many moments are going to be pointing at something and screaming as they do in Ren and Stimpy cartoon.
There's a lot of pointing in this cartoon. In fact, one of the things I pointed out on Twitter was one of a really good pointing scene at the end with the dog character pointing at Ren and him like kind of pulling backwards. Lots of pointing. So Ren finds his own mountain cave pretty easily. I guess he's got working with this hermit real estate agent or something.
Yeah, the wiki calls him announcer salesman. That's his nomenclature.
They made a cartoon about him. I think it's just called It's That Guy Again.
Okay.
It's that man again.
That man again, yeah, where he's fooling two hillbillies into getting into a feud with each other. It's very funny.
That's another of Billy West's amazing characters, which is just him. Like Billy West is he the Mel Blanc of our age? Is that who would you call that if not him?
He's up there definitely.
Yeah,
but
I don't know who else I'd say. Like Maurice LaMarche, maybe. Like
maybe Maurice tied with him.
Yeah. It'd be a close tie.
But yeah, this is Billy. That character is just Billy making fun of announcers who phrased everything badly with this character.
Yeah. Now his description of the button in Space Madness is another of my all-time favorite moments in Ren and Stimpy. Yeah, and this guy, he's such a phony. He has a chin strap on, like he has even a fake beard for his hermit costume.
But he knows the rules of being a hermit. So number one, no sunlight. Number two, no bathing. Number three, absolutely no friends. And this will pay off in the end. This cartoon has some logic to it, despite it being a bunch of insane screaming and a character having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, I love the shot where he screams, "No friends!"
Yeah.
Like, so great.
And Ren is happy. He says, "See you, never again."
Yeah. That almost feels intentionally puppety, his little walk away.
Yeah. It's like a very Hanna-Barbera cheapo walk where he's like just bouncing off the screen.
Yeah.
And he's called a loser. And when Ren rocks in the cave, the guy hits a button and the boulder just rolls back in front of it.
How did Ren afford this cave?
It's a very nice like garage door joke, but with a kind of Jesus-style cave.
And that you are a professional hermit. It's a trade union. Like, you can't just be a hermit on your own, which that's such a great concept too.
The 90s was the era of union jokes.
Now unions have been destroyed, and so you can't do them no more.
So Ren is inside of his new cave marveling at all of the wonders, which is basically nothing. So no annoyances, peace and solitude, and no Stimpy. But he soon finds a friend.
Yep, doesn't get any better than this. Just a little rearrangement of the furniture and... Huh? A mummified Bogman! Wow! Someone to talk to who can't talk back! Whoops! Well, buddy, now that I'm finally alone, I'm gonna do all the things I've always wanted to do. Like writing that novel. Clip my toenails. Build a gelding chin. And then I'm gonna scrape my uvula. Listen to my Urethra Franklin records. Fix the Buick.
So as a kid, what I took away most from this cartoon is the Bogman. I love him.
Love that Bogman.
A mummified Bogman.
He's got a sack of beer too. It's like, how never get away with something like that ever again.
And this guy clearly killed himself. He's got a noose around his neck.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's insane.
I at first thought like, well, the censors maybe didn't get this, but beer is written on there.
And it comes back too.
Yeah. Like he will be torn apart, this corpse, later on. But like that, yeah, the noose on him really, like, that's the darkest this gets, which, well, and that makes it even funnier that Ren is excited to see him when he instead should say like, oh, is this what will happen to me? This is what happened to the last hermit here.
I like that he says, wow.
Wow.
He's so excited.
and he just props him up.
Yeah.
He's like, all right.
Good.
That's also what's exciting to watch as a viewer, because when you see the name Hermit Ren, even as a child, you know what a hermit means. That's a crazy person who lives alone in a cave. And so when you know Ren is already this unbalanced, you have to wonder, like, how far is this going to go? Like, we already see that's an exciting proposition.
I love every painting of the Bogman, every drawing of the Bogman. I love later when Ren turns into the Bogman.
That was your Twitter, Abby, for a while.
For a long time it was. It's actually going to be the cover art for this episode. But it's I just love the Bogman. Just a weird, simple design. Just this like scarecrow man.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got the dumbest, weirdest look on his, I guess, face.
Sure.
I guess he's got a face. He's got a mouth. But yes, also a very good castration joke that I just got this time. The gelding gin. He wants to make a machine that, I guess, castrates yaks.
Like a cotton gin, but for gelding yaks. And then
he's so proud standing next to it, too.
My favorite thing is that there's kind of a like meat grinder output on it, too, that you imagine like, so is that what the ground up penis is going to come out
It's just
of?
the testicles, Henry.
Oh,
just
I'm
the
sorry,
testicles.
just testes. That's right.
Yeah, there's also a couple of little references. Aretha Franklin and Fix-It Buick. Those were two of Riccardi's hobbies.
Okay. But he says urethra, not urethra. That's so weird.
It's an okay pun. But yes,
they got that on TV. Like he's describing a penis. Like that's, and I also
like
like
a castration joke and a penis singer.
Yeah. I also like when they spontaneously draw a belly button on Ren. Like he gets a belly button for like 8 seconds here.
I like when he just would randomly have a tail and then no tail.
Yeah.
After the fade out, we go back at home. Stimpy is stupider than ever and says Ren is going to miss his dinner, which is basically his own chart accordion. So Stimpy's, I guess, intelligence levels have reduced even further without someone to talk to.
I guess so. I also love the tiki style version of Kumbaya playing behind all the scenes.
Riccardi's own recording.
I was wondering about that after learning he did the music because it doesn't sound like a library.
Which is
sample.
rare for Ren and Stimpy. Well, not rare, but they did. They used a lot of library.
It was rare of fresh recording, and I'm sure Reccardi would have scored the whole cartoon if he could have.
And there's a weird joke up next where it's one of those jokes where the calendar pages get torn off and as time passes. So we go from June of 1994 to January of 1994. I don't know if that was just a mistake or if that's actually a joke where the year just loops. Like there's no end to this cycle.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. That's probably just some gaffe.
It feels like a mistake, but I guess they had different plans.
Sure makes me feel old seeing 94 on a current calendar in this.
This episode is 25 years old. Yeah, I wonder if they had plans for this to air that summer or something, or maybe that June. That's why the calendar.
It was delivered. Let me see. I actually wrote down when it was delivered.
Ooh.
Okay, I don't have the date, but it was delivered in July of '94. So
okay, so
that's why I was able to air that clip with Jay Leno.
That's why it freaked him out in the summer. We all had to wait for the fall. So we're back in the cave. Ren is disheveled. He's grown a long beard. Clearly, he has run out of things to do in the cave. I just love the painting of the cave with graffiti all over the wall. Ren is just sitting there with a vacant look in his eyes. All the pebbles are stacked up around him. He's clearly making the most of this cave life, but there's nothing left to do.
The slow pull out on that shot is one of the most gorgeous things in this whole episode. Like that, he's etched. He's been etching the days in the walls. He's been playing tic-tac-toe. He wrote Ren rules, and he even wrote Home Sweet Home, just like it said in front of the doorway at their home.
Oh,
too,
right,
which
yeah.
The backgrounds in this are just like gorgeous. Even in their house, I love the mismatched wallpaper. Like that just tells the story in itself right there. And like, he is just so blankly, and he's mirrored with the corpse. Like, so it's just poetic. I love it.
That is his future.
You've got to give props to Bill Ray and Scott Wills for this. Yes, that's another thing I wanted to mention with like the backgrounds during the games era. I think they even got better. I mean, that's the one thing that I think I wrote it in my book that you can point out that actually got better after Spunko is the backgrounds, because John Kay, like as much as he'd like chastise Candy Cane Lane and shit like that, but his idea is Shit Avenue Brown. The colors would get a lot more experimental in the games years, and this is the proof. There's a lot of pink and purple in this one, but it's artful pink and purple, not like, as we were saying earlier, like Tiny Toons era pink and purple. This is actually artfully done.
Yeah, it's like I'm looking at my screenshots now I took of the show that I put on Twitter. It's pink and purple and seafoam green all together. The color design on this short is amazing.
Which is, I mean, a lot of SpongeBob was that too. Like we said in our SpongeBob one, even before they hired, R&S folks, there was so much style to it from Ren and Stimpy. Like Reccardi, he did.
Yeah, he's done a lot of cartoons on and off since then. I meant to watch a few of them, but he's done things like SpongeBob. I couldn't list all the things that he did, but he did things like Flapjack and Chowder. Like he would just do one cartoon for like a bunch of different shows. So Ren is getting hungry. His stomach starts popping like a popcorn popper. So he just moans unintelligibly and walks off screen. I just love his like.
I love that Ren didn't even consider he'd starve to death living in a cave by himself. On the shot of him looking around for food, he also has a big scraggly beard now. But the way he has like a tangled neck as he's looking around.
Yeah.
Pathetic Ren is so great in general because that's the two directions on his character goes. He's like righteous screaming anger and then just like a broken mess going like, really?
Yeah, with Ren with the tangled neck walking off screen moaning, it's a very UPA cubist drawing. One eye is way bigger than the other. He's just very flat. I'm sure if John Kay saw this, he'd die. And good, he should.
Yeah, well, he's actually posting his version of cubism right now on his blog.
Oh, no.
Suddenly resurrected, but definitely not as good as this.
And there's a shocking amount of bat shit in this one.
Yeah, so I guess here come the shit jokes because he goes off to find some food. He walks right into a pile of bat dung. We pan up to the bats, and one of them says, "Man, that coffee works."
That's a Bill Ray joke.
Yeah.
I love the design on that bat too. It's a classic like big guy no neck kind of design, except in a little bat. Like so it's extra funny.
This is one of his first of his many hallucinations. So he sees the hanging bats as the cow udders of his upside down cow house, and he wants to squeeze some milk out of them. And the bat has none of that shit. He says, "What are you doing? I'm a man, not a cow." But he's a bat.
He says he's a man.
Yeah.
I'm a man. And that was like West doing an impression of the angry guy voice of the guy who plays the Dalmatian later in this.
I think he's doing an imitation of Harris Pete. It sounds like it.
I note the bat shit because Ren does go bat shit crazy.
Yeah, that's the joke.
Wow. Whoa. Hey, Jesus Christ. I can't believe I'm just getting this. Bat shit crazy. Jesus God. This episode is filthy, by the way. I watched this when I was 12 at my grandma's house. So up next, we meet another hallucination, Farmer Hoek, played uncreditedly by Craig Bartlett, the creator of Hey Arnold.
Which listen to our Hey Arnold, What a Cartoon to learn all about his interesting life.
And based on your book I've said based on your book a lot during this podcast, so I apologize to our listeners, but based on your book, it seems like Craig was just sort of thrown onto Ren and Stimpy because they weren't ready for him to make Hey Arnold yet?
Yeah, that's exactly it. He was just basically slugging and timing. They just gave him some Vanessa Coffey and Jim Ballantyne were just giving him some work to do. He was just he had been around. He had known the Ren and Stimpy guys. He had been on Rugrats and he'd been to their screenings and stuff. But he's a good guy, very talented. Maybe not the perfect fit for Ren and Stimpy, which is why he was sort of just doing grunt work. But he's perfectly capable, perfectly talented, able to do that stuff.
He seems like an odd fit, especially compared to Hey Arnold. But if I watch his cartoons that he did for the show, I'm like, oh, he doesn't seem that out of place. Like he's able to do the style.
Well, I mean, the scatological stuff wasn't so much in Hey Arnold, but I guess if I were to find similarities between Hey Arnold and Ren and Stimpy, it was a lot about Arnold was trying to navigate dysfunctional people who sometimes were very angry for no good reason. So maybe that's the best connection there for it. But I think for his character here, Ren and Stimpy's universe dictates that you must be haunted by at least one terrifying father figure per episode.
Yeah. I guess this is more of a genial father figure, even though he's sort of making fun of Ren.
He's making commandments, though.
Like
it's somebody who has like their father's voice in their head yelling at at them all the time. That's what always catches me in these episodes now. Like, oh, all you guys have your dad. Imagine your dad yelling at you. And that's what this, I mean, definitely this farmer is nothing like the other uncomfortable monsters.
He's
that
not
yell
like
at them.
Anthony's dad, which is the
No.
ultimate angry dad on Ren
That's
and Stimpy.
John K's dad.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but this guy's nicer, the farmer type. But he's being mean to Ren though.
He shows Ren how to eat bugs in this next clip.
Farmer Hoik. Oh, Father, I'm starving. What should I do?
Don't be a darn weakling, boy. We Hoeks are made of sterner stuff. Why, the Chihuahua is a natural-born scavenger.
Yes?
Look around you, man. There's a wealth of sustenance before you. Spore, lichen, and fungi to eat. Entire herds of fleas, ticks, and chiggers to raise and ranch. Why, you could live like a king. Well, son, gotta go. Kid never had any sense.
So the noises you heard are of Ren. He pulled a stalagmite out of the ground. He's just turning it in his teeth, like scraping
a corn
the
cob,
yeah,
kinda.
yeah.
Oh.
Great animation.
They
didn't break his teeth, Henry.
That's what terrified me when I had forgotten most of the jokes in this. And so when I watched, I was like, he's going to shatter his teeth on that rock. Oh, no. And I was so happy they had that amount of restraint there.
Yeah, and even his hallucinations are fucking with him. It's great.
Yeah. And laughing at him, as they walk away, like, I talked him into eating bugs.
Everything he either sees in this cave is a pile of rocks or a pile of shit. He's just seeing things as these things.
And man, some of my favorite poses are in this too. I mean, like his outstretched arms where you see his like hairy, ugly pits where he's like, you could live like a king.
And there's like bugs under his arms too. Yeah.
And then the shot right after that of Ren's excited reaction shot where he's like his tongue is stump. It's a stump for some reason, just in that one shot.
I like the monkey squeal too.
Yeah. Oh, they love a monkey squeal sound effect on this. I mean, that came up that I had forgotten the connection from Ren and Stimpy to Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys, our previous What a Cartoon. Well, just that the Kim guys at Tune in US worked on it. All right, is that the name of the production?
Yeah. That was a local sweatshop in Chinatown. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
But that's as what Mike Kim described it as. But yeah, with that scene, I think there's a lot of Don Shank in that scene, who was one of the unsung premiere artists. If you Google him, you'll see his style, and you say, oh yeah, that's yeah. No, I have a couple of Shank's drawings in my book, not from this cartoon, but yeah, very funny. But he was in and out a lot, usually doing stuff freelance.
When I do love the line, the Chihuahua is a natural-born scavenger, and then Ren's pathetic reaction, like, yeah. So, it's like, we are.
Yeah.
It's so good.
He's stunned by this information. But so up next, I feel like Nickelodeon. Henry's going to get sick, I know. Nickelodeon, according to Thad's book, take a shot. They didn't want the psychodramas, which were my favorite cartoons. The ones where Ren has a slow nervous breakdown, or the ones that were very, fucked up in a psychological sort of way. They wanted, no, make as many booger and poop and pee jokes as you want to. So I think this is them. Of course, they did enjoy making these jokes, but I think this is them giving Nickelodeon what they wanted, like a lot of it up front, so they could do the crazy Ren stuff in between it. So Stimpy is at home making an earwax version of Ren. That sounds like a parody of Ren and Stimpy,
Yeah.
It sounds like somebody is writing a parody of Ren and Stimpy like The Simpsons did.
Yeah, that earwax is just like a scatological, monkey cheese kind of thing. It has the bat shit at least has like a thematic purpose, but earwax is like, well, we've got shit in the other scene. What else?
What else comes out of an orifice?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, it's funny to think that this cartoon ends ends with an earwax Ren hugging a poop Stimpy and then winking at the audience.
Yeah.
That they bring it that far, but it's just like I prefer the more crazy, non-scatological stuff in this cartoon.
So I took an impromptu trip to Disneyland this weekend that my husband surprised me with, and so we went there. The main thrust was to go to the Star Wars land, but we had time to kill, so we went on Splash Mountain first, and then my husband was going to line up. He's like, here, you just sit here and wait for an hour. I was like, well, this is a perfect time to watch the Ren and Stimpy cartoon to prepare. So sitting in front of you, like Happy Disney Splash Mountain.
Perfect.
I am seeing this earwax, this spoonful of earwax come out of Stimpy's ear, and I was like, I'm very close to throwing up here.
I'm glad it looks like peanut butter, though. It's not realistic. But then you could go in the Splash Mountain cave and pretend you're Ren.
I know. Yeah, I should. I should have done it first. See, I did Splash Mountain first and then watch the cartoon. I should have. Which that takes you back to a different cartoon you can't do anymore.
That's right. That's right.
Did you know they changed it to that he's in like a beehive now instead of the Tar Baby? Like that's what catches him.
Yes, I wrote it again recently in December.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But I forgot about the old one, actually, now that you mention it.
I wrote it in Disney World when I still think it was the Tar Baby, and then or I'm just creating memories in my head.
They're just gonna gut it and put another fucking Frozen thing.
I'm shocked that hasn't happened yet, to be completely honest.
What if the ice melted? So after the act break, we get the Ren's major freak out. Well, the first part of it anyway. This is more of a low-key freak out where he is basically at the end of his rope. He's hallucinating. He's just catatonic. There are so many great drawings. And this is where Chris Reccardi's music comes in.
Yeah. I like when they come back, Ren at first is drawn like with a kind of fat belly, implying he just like pigged out on all of the garbage that Farmer Hoek told him to eat. So imagine he's full of bugs. Well, actually, no, a bug crawls out of his mouth because he just ate them all.
I love the vacant Ren with the bug just crawling out of his mouth. I found somebody made animated GIFs of that scene.
It's good.
Yes,
it's
and
really
I want to
good.
play a bit of the Reccardi music. It is haunting. It is creepy. It's perfect, and it perfectly underscores the scene of a character breaking out. Again, I watched this at age 12 at my grandma's house, so let's hear it. And again, you have to see the drawings, but it all works so perfectly. I love every little bit in this. I love when Ren looks at his hands. His hands come up from the bottom of the screen. They're very realistic, and then the skin melts away from them.
Oh, it's so
great.
It's so acidy freak out.
To
foist on children. It's so horrifying, but gorgeous. Just that's most of this episode to me. Just horrifying and gorgeous. And and that music, God, the like especially when you talk about him playing the bass, like that's where I really am hearing the bass lines in it too.
The final bit of this little freak out is him seeing himself as the Bogman. A very cute drawing. It's so cute.
Yeah.
Whoever is drawing Ren with giant pupils in this episode, they make him adorable. I don't know which artist it is that makes his pupils really big and really pink, but it's just so cute. But yes, he sees himself as the Bogman. He runs away, ranting insanely until he runs smack into the pile of bad shit. He tears off just enough to make a batshit version of Stimpy, and now he decides he needs some real company.
Need some real company. Huh? Oh, at last, a real friend.
What a bunch of mush. That's right. You heard me. What are you playing with dirt for?
I just wanted some company.
But you're your own best company.
Me?
That's right. You and your feelings. Behold! Anger. Fear. And ignorance. Ah!
Wow! Company! Let's have a party!
That's the second time Ren has just said, wow, at a very horrifying thing.
Yeah, he saw something that should terrify him. He's like, wow, yay.
The Bogman starts talking to him with Frank Sinatra's voice.
Yes.
And basically brings to life his...
I think there's a bit of Mo Howard in that voice.
Oh, you're right. It is
Yeah.
Mo Howard. Yeah. But I love all the individual drawings. I will say Pixar ripped off this idea for Inside Out completely.
They did. Well, I think Don Shank worked on Inside Out. I'm not sure.
Wow, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think Ignorance is Billy West. It sounds like a different duh voice.
Yeah, the wiki credits him. I'm like, I don't
It
think.
is. It's
Yeah.
Billy.
Oh.
He's just doing it weird.
Okay.
Okay.
Very versatile then.
God, it's so good. Well, to do a different idiot when you already have the ultimate idiot in Stimpy in here.
Shank did work on Inside Out, so there you go.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That's why Anger looks exactly the same and as the Inside Out one.
And Anger is Popeye. Anger has Popeye's voice.
You're right. I also. I love when he says, "You're your own best friend." Me.
Yeah.
His desperate look on his me.
So I guess so. Anger is Popeye. Fear is the version of the Jackie puppet that Billy West did on the Howard Stern show, and then Ignorance is just a dumber Stimpy.
Yes.
I mean the jokes with Ignorance are just like those kind of jokes.
Yeah.
There's one I like. They put in a fart noise after one thing he says. I laughed so long. It's so cheap. I don't know why it gets to me.
Yeah.
I think it's like got any cheese or does somebody say cheese thing later.
Also, much like that What a Cartoon of theirs we talked about, that once it's a time for a party, it's a madman style stag party.
Yeah.
That is the height of parties for this generation of guys.
Nothing escapes the 60s on Ren and Stimpy.
No,
it's always trapped in the 60s. So I have a very long clip I'm going to play next. Thad, any thoughts on what we just listened to previously?
No, this is just showing off the versatility of Billy West again. That's something Chris told me he tried to do, because if you listen to some of the other Games Era Ren and Stimpy's, it kind of gets into a little rut with a little bit of misdirection. That's what Chris was trying to really bring back. It's not slagging on the other guys, but Chris really brought out the best in Billy, I think, in these years.
I mean, Billy West is in fine form in this one.
Yeah, this episode probably took, 8 months off his life, all the screaming he does.
Sure.
I mean, I still think the ultimate screaming of his is the pro wrestlers one.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
The killer, the one, I think that's what he said, almost destroyed
Killer
his voice.
Cadogan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
So yes, up next we have a very long freak out. I only have 8 minutes worth of clips for this episode, but this is a minute 40, but I couldn't cut any part of this Billy West freak out. I cut it as soon as I could, so we're going to listen to the whole thing.
The greatest.
It's perfect. Again, watch this. You have to see how every drawing, every piece of artwork perfectly accents what's happening on the screen. So it turns out this blackjack game turns ugly for Ren, and this is his final freak out of the episode.
Hey, how about a game of blackjack? I hate games. Call 991.
I want a pretzel.
That's
Come
it.
on, guys. We'll have fun. I hate fun. Is this gonna hurt?
Go fish.
Guys. Hey, you're trying to cheat. Yeah, your whole life's a cheat. Here's the cheat.
Did somebody say cheese?
Your whole life's a cheat. Stop! Who are you? You're not my friends. You're just here to trick me, so you can steal all my stuff. Well, I'm on to you. Stand back! One false move, and the mummy gets it! I know all about your plot. You're all in it together. Each and every one of you. Sleeping in my gravel bed. Eating all my sand. Or here's something you can really have. Hi-ya!
There's a lot going on in that clip. I have to say,
man.
My favorite stuff in that clip, I love when Ren, so he breaks the arm off the Bogman and holds it up to his own head. He's holding the Bogman hostage with his own arm. And then he starts pointing at things with the Bogman's arm. Are those Mike Kim drawings with Ren pointing with the arm?
I'm not sure. I think most of this is Chris.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Mike Kim stuff was mostly with the salesman at the door. He's the one who told. I asked him, I noticed with a lot of your scenes, someone's pointing into someone's chest. Is that a trademark? He said, no, just bad acting.
Every shot of this I love, but I think ones I wanted to call out was like that Ignorance's cards that are in its mouth are all 13s.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Wow.
So stupid. And then finally we get the damage to teeth that I was fearing the whole time. That Ren is gritting his teeth so hard that then they're
eating all my
cracking.
sand.
And I feel like I was about to go insane hearing all the repeated stuff during the bit where Ren is pulling at his head as the Dutch angle starts. And yes, one of my favorite drawings in the whole thing is eating all my sand. God, he's so... and also it's so horrifying. Like he bashes that corpse into pieces, and like it has fitting anatomy. Like there's a spinal column when he smashes up the torso.
But for some reason at the end there's just one bone. I think they're doing like a 2001 A Space Odyssey reference with him bashing the rock with a bone.
I think so too, yeah. This is some of my favorite Billy West Ren acting probably ever. I think this is when he really became the guy.
It's in my top 5 Ren freakout moments in this series. And this was the clip again. They showed part of this clip to Jay Leno. Imagine 1994 America sitting down to watch Jay Leno and seeing this clip of Ren and Stimpy.
Well, that's why this is the part that goes on after midnight. Though.
Yeah.
Your dad's already asleep. He doesn't have to see this.
Billy
shit.
West is the second guest on the show. Thad, any thoughts about this scene? There's so much going on. Again, for the 90th time, you have to watch this because it's so well done. Reccardi's layouts and direction, the freak out before with his great music. This is one of the perfect moments of Ren freaking out. Basically at war with himself.
It's pure visual. You can't understate that. This is not that overused term illustrated radio. It's like this is something you have to watch. I mean, you can't play it in the background. Even if you've seen it a million times, you want to see this again. You need the visual with the sound.
Yeah, I was actually going back to my screenshots I took while the clips were playing and saying, I got to see how this looks. I got to see how he's gesturing with the mummy's arm.
I love how Anger says your whole life's a cheat. That's a great. And then the Fear one, instead of pointing with his own hand to say he's the cheat, he's holding up a little hand that is a pointing hand.
That's right. Oh, so many great details. But yeah, that is Ren's freak out. That is soon interrupted by the leader of the Hermit Union.
All right, this is a bust. You've broken the cardinal rule of hermitude. Companionship. And what's with all these imaginary friends? You violated the law tenfold. You are officially kicked out of the Hermit Union.
That dude destroyed that mic. I want to hear just the very beginning of that really quick. Shield your ears, everybody.
All right, this is a bust.
Just destroying that mic. That is a hot mic.
Jesus Christ.
He's still around, Harris Pete. He actually showed up on Facebook randomly. It's
that is
it's
amazing.
Funny.
Was he a voice actor or just somebody they knew?
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth.
I wonder where they dug this guy out, but that's well. Also, I just love that it's the Dalmatian from Fire Dogs. Like it's
actually a Milt Gross character.
Okay.
They ripped it off.
Okay, but
he was in Big House Blues, and then he starts showing up as extras again.
He's like the only force of order in this entire world. Like everything else is just monstrous chaos, but he shows up and be like, "These are the rules."
And it's a crossword puzzle too.
Yeah, I like that.
So there are no rules even there too. Like he's
I also like the dialogue. What's with all these imaginary friends?
Of course he sees them. Yeah. He knows like hermits aren't allowed to have imaginary friends. How dare you?
So Ren's beard is removed and he salutes the Hermit Union leader and he carries the giant shit Stimpy down the mountain. I like everybody's saluting, even the Bogman. All of his imaginary friends are saluting him as he walks down the mountain.
Bats too.
Yeah, it's like Nixon leaving the White House.
Yeah. Well, it's like out of an army movie where a character gets discharged, and then I mean, the bit of ripping off the beard is like ripping off your things. Though it reminds me, the first time I ever saw that was in the Mounties Bugs Bunny cartoon where he pretends to be Elmer's boss and just rips off all his clothes. That was the first time I saw that gag. But that also felt Ren's march down the mountain. Honestly, felt kind of Christ-like to me. Like but it's a batshit Stimpy instead of a cross. That
is true. I never thought of it that way. It maybe goes on a little too long, but I like that we see the Bogman is there saluting him.
But his beard, the beard is the closest thing to like a medal or a rank that a hermit has. I guess in the Hermit Union, you're measured by how long your beard is in hermitude.
Companionship. I love that.
Companionship. And the way he points his finger through his crossword puzzle board is also just so great too. Like everything has to be so extreme.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And everyone is constantly pointing
Yep.
in this universe. But finally, Ren is back. Ren and Stimpy reunite, and so do their body waste doppelgangers.
Oh, God.
Ren! You're back! So, I turned my back for 10 years, and you find yourself another chihuahua. Ahem. But Ren... Oh, sure. Well, it's great to be back, buddy!
I like how they wink at at the audience.
But the Kumbaya theme coming back, that's so good. Like again, even more credit to Reccardi for that music. Like it sets the tone so well. Just the Kumbaya is the theme for the episode. It's just so good. Sure. Yeah,
it is one of the most inane songs, parodied lots of places.
I always love when they call each other buddy because they're so gay and more than buddies. But
Ren is just like you found another man when he comes back home. I leave for 10 years.
But it's such a Hanna-Barbera style, like hey there, buddy. Hey, like just that chumminess when they're clearly a romantic couple is very funny to me. And they kind of pause on Stimpy's outfit with his painted on lipstick, as in like, oh, is he gone crazier? But it's like I feel like Stimpy would wear that any day.
Yeah,
it's not a random occurrence for Stimpy. I also like when Ren gets shown up, like Stimpy's like, now Ren. He's like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
And they reunite, and Ren continues this vicious cycle.
Yes, yeah. It's
of being pissed off all the time.
If it wasn't a codependent relationship, it wouldn't be Ren and Stimpy. That's the show wouldn't work any other way. The show would just end if it stopped being a codependent relationship. They would just separate, and that's the end of the show.
In the next episode, they'll be in a different house, a different reality, different
New
circumstances,
jobs.
new jobs. But yes, that's
100 years earlier or later in time.
That is also true. But yeah, so that was Hermit Ren. Again, I wanted to do this episode to show people that the games era has some really great heights. They were still making tons of cartoons after John K. Was fired, and there's still more good cartoons to check out. Some of my favorites are, and I will list a few of them here if you want to check out more game stuff. I love Doubleheader, Ren's Brain, Ren Needs Help. Let me think. Insomniac Ren, of course, Reverend Jack. There's at least, like, I would say 10 to 12 really good cartoons from the games era, and the other ones aren't the worst things you'll ever see. They're still fun Ren and Stimpy adventures. How do you feel with that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I was looking at my list. I would also add the aforementioned Hard Times for Haggis.
Right.
Ren's Better Half. I think what else?
I was a Teenage Stimpy is really good.
Teenage Stimpy, yes, that was the next one.
What was the one where Stimpy was naked? I liked that
No
one.
No Pants Today.
Yeah, No Pants Today. That was a
written
favorite.
in Spumco.
Okay.
Over. Salve and Salve Not, Yard Too Far, Stimpy's Cartoon Show. They couldn't make every cartoon a classic. I mean, that's not realistic in TV production. But there's still some heights in the games era. But unfortunately, like a lot of them are, I don't know if you want to say phoned in, but misguided. A lot of the direction and board work was being done outside the studio. You know, you just couldn't do the level of quality that Spumco had done. And there's cartoons of Bob Camps where he had like just a day to go through a bunch of layouts. And I know it gets to him that a lot of the other cartoons are held up, in a lot more higher esteem than his. But defending him, he didn't have that level of time. I mean, none of his cartoons had games he would be able to pose out or do layout on each and every single one of them. And that's sort of like hurt his batting average a bit.
Well, I mean, he's carrying the managerial burden for
exactly
so much
that
of it.
Too, as well.
It's actually surprising that he was directing and laying out cartoons because normally these days, and maybe even back then, if you were a supervising director, you weren't directing episodes individually. If you're the showrunner, you weren't normally writing episodes of a show. So the fact that he was showrunning and also doing, lower level stuff alongside that is pretty miraculous that he was able to get anything done.
Yeah, exactly. Hermit Ren definitely is a highlight. I think they overplayed it a bit. I seem to remember it being on all the time, but it might have been one of those cases where it was like one of the only new ones they had. So let's run this into the ground since we ran everything else. All right.
That is true. So yeah, again, there's great game stuff, and I think at this point, if you are still a John K. true believer, I don't know what can help you outside of medication or maybe like a full frontal lobotomy. But yeah, please check out the other game stuff, and also we talked about a lot of what Chris Reccardi worked on. Check out his stuff. He passed away way too early. He still had a lot of work and a lot of great stuff left in him, and it was sad to see him go.
Yeah.
And as we age, we're going to start seeing more animation people go away to the great beyond.
This
so
is a dark ending here.
what a cartoon's becoming a real graveyard. But thank you so much, Chris Reccardi, wherever you are, for making great cartoons and being such a great part of Ren and Stimpy. So Thad, can we just have you let us know where we can find you, anything you're working on? Of course, the book Sick Little Monkeys. I think I've read it 3.5 times. I read a lot more of it. So I read it 3 times before, and I read parts of it for this podcast. So I've technically read it 4 times. So I recommend everyone go out there and read it. I've got a signed copy.
Me too.
For the personalized message.
Yes. But yeah, anything else going on with you these days, Thad?
Yes. So you can find me at whataboutthad.com. That's my blog. I update intermittently. I posted in tribute my full interview with Chris Reccardi back from 2009.
That is great. Yeah.
I quoted it pretty heavily in my book, but the full thing is there. I also do mostly digital restoration these days for various outlets. You can find my company's website, Sineast Restoration, at sineastrestoration.com. And I will be starting a new podcast coming soon. I don't know if it'll be out by the time of this episode, but it will be entitled Cartoon Logic. It'll be sort of in the format of this show, but focused exclusively on classic animation from the golden age of animation, shorts, and professional breakdowns, because my co-host will be Bob Jakes, who was the main animation director of Ren and Stimpy. But he's sort of a cartoon historian himself, and
it's good get.
He's looked at these things a lot longer than we've been alive. So,
well, man,
our first episode is going to be breaking down parts of the new Popeye Blu-ray that's coming out.
Oh boy! So,
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it'll be. I'll be recording it right after he sees the Blu-ray for the first time. So he's looked at those about 1 million times, so it'll be interesting to get his reactions.
People warn us about running out of content, but I mean, you're only going to have like 1,000 shorts or something to deal with.
Well, that's what we're worrying about, getting too repetitive. But it'll probably be on a bi-weekly schedule. We'll be doing a Patreon, of course, and I'll give you all the info when that happens.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you so much
again,
Thad.
Thanks for joining us, Thad.
Thank you.
So thanks again for joining us for What a Cartoon. If you want to help the show out, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. And for the low cost of $5 a month, you'll get every episode of this podcast 1 week ahead of time and ad-free. And the same goes for Talking Simpsons. At the $5 level, you'll also have access to everything behind that paywall, including all of our exclusive miniseries, which includes the newest miniseries, which is Talk King of the Hill, our entire first season exploration of King of the Hill. And we will have another exclusive miniseries coming much, much later in late summer, early fall. So check that out when it's ready. But until then, we've got so much stuff waiting for you at the $5 level. And Henry, what is happening at the $10 level for patrons?
Well, if you want to jump up to the premium level and get even more bang for your buck, you can hear What a Cartoon Movie Podcast, our monthly podcast in the What a Cartoon style, except we talk about a different animated feature film for twice as long as we do on a normal What a Cartoon. Our most recent one, almost 4 hours about Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spent My Vacation. The OVA, if you will, of the Tiny Toons era. The best animation the show ever saw from TMS, and some of the funniest stuff, especially the Plucky on Vacation stuff. You will learn a ton about the creation of Tiny Toon Adventures if you give a listen to that podcast. Only for $10 and up people, though you'll get a little preview of it in your feed if you're not a subscriber at the $10 level yet. So please check that out. What a Cartoon Movie, and all the other bonuses at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
So I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. Find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts. It's a classic gaming podcast every Monday and occasionally on Friday. Go to retronauts.com or look for Retronauts in your podcast device. I think you'll like it. Henry, what about you?
I'm Henry Gilbert, and you can follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. I tweet about when new stuff goes live on the Patreon and on the free feeds, plus all my thoughts on the world of today. And even when I go to Disneyland, I tweet out pictures to show off things you should be jealous of that I got to do and you didn't. So follow me on Twitter one more time, HENEREYG.
Thanks again for joining us, folks. We'll see you next week for the Weekenders episodes Cry and The Perfect Sun, and we will see you then.
To be a professional hermit, Mr. Hoek, you'll need your very own private cave. Wow. Now, remember the Hermit Union rules. No sunlight, no bathing, and absolutely no friends.
Hey, absolutely no problem with that, Chief. Now, if you don't mind, I'll be checking in. See ya. Never again.
Enjoy! Loser.